Welcome to CookIN Gone Wild, Field to Table. I'm your host, Michelle Kane, and I am here at Lieber State Recreation Area with Summer Cooper, who is a forager and is going to teach me how to forage today for some wild edibles.
Thank you.
It's going to be really nice and fresh, so I'm excited. What are we kind of looking for today? Let's just talk about a couple plants that we might hope to find, and then we'll go out there and start looking around.
Well, it's late spring, so some things that are going to be in season are stinging nettles. We can get the stems off of the burdock plant, which is kind of like people use thistle, kind of use it in a similar manner. We are going to look for some wood sorrel and maybe some oyster mushrooms, hopefully.
So what do we need to kind of be prepared? What do we need to take with us? That sort of thing.
Well, the first thing you have to think about is the way you're dressing. When you're out in the woods, there are a lot of briars and things you're running into, and you don't, trust me, you don't want those scratches all over your legs
Right.
or the poison ivy coming out. So I usually try to wear a pretty sturdy pair of pants and also a pair of boots that are both high and waterproof.
Okay.
So a few other things. I've got a basket here. You do want a container to carry whatever your edibles you find and bring back with you, and maybe carry a couple extra bags as well. Since we're going to be handling stinging nettles today, I did bring gloves. I don't always bring them. You're going to want something to cut. A trowel is a good idea, or a pocket knife or a trowel that will cut is a good idea too. If you're going to be digging something, you want something like that. And then a field guide is never a bad idea in case you come across something you don't know and you want to look it up.
Right. Is that the field guide that you usually use? Are there any?
I use a combination. Honestly, I think it's a good idea not to rely too heavily on one source.
Right.
You need to look at a lot of sources when you're doing this. It's not perfect. There is misinformation out there. You want to make sure you're gathering from a lot of places and make sure you have a very good understanding of what you're doing.
So basically the main rule is know what it is before you eat it, right?
Absolutely. That's the first rule of foraging. Do not put something in your mouth if you don't know what it is.
It's generally a rule of life, right? You want to know what it is before you eat it.
So we're looking for a creek bottom where it's moist. They really like moist, wet places that get some sun.
Okay.
So this would be a good spot if it was sunny, but since it's not getting any sun, we probably won't find them there.
Right.
Yeah, I think we might have our spot up here.
All right.
It looks sunny and low. This looks a lot like a slender nettle. Doesn't have any slivers on it. Dig into the shade again. Honestly, I kind of think we should just follow the water until we stumble on them. They're so common, I can't imagine not coming on them.
Sounds good. So I fished, but I never hunted or anything until I got into this profession as a fisheries biologist.
So we've got some stinging nettle here, and these are like the spinach of the plant world.
Okay.
People know them, they use them, they taste great. The easiest way to know if you've got a stinging nettle is the stingers on the stem here. And if you touch it, it'll burn kind of for a minute, and then it'll itch for a good 10 to 20 minutes. You've got ovate leaves, which means egg-shaped.
Right.
And you've got tooth margins, or serrated. Underneath, the underneath leaf is going to be kind of silvery.
Okay.
I just take the tips. That's where you've got the most plant life there.
Okay.
The most green to use, and then you've got something left. They flower actually underneath here, underneath their leaves. So if you leave some of the plant, there's something there to reproduce. Although they grow, they're very common. They're not endangered or anything like that.
So that we're looking at the same thing here, right? With the everything. Okay. I'm trying not to like rub the stinging nettle part on your arm.
So these are the nettle tips here, just the tops of the plant. And then as you can see, we left the rest of the plant here.
Well, some of them are really cool just because
selfishly
they're
motivated.
Like I know the common ones in my backyard. All right, so we found some oyster mushrooms. So let's talk about why we know that they are oyster mushrooms and not, something
Oyster
that might
mushrooms are actually one of those mushrooms that are easy, I think, to identify. They don't. The main thing is that they don't have poisonous lookalikes. So if you find something that looks like an oyster mushroom, and I highly encourage you, get a mushroom guide. But I'm going to show you a few things that help you know that these are oysters.
Well, one, they're growing on the side of a damaged tree, so that's one thing to look for, right?
Absolutely, dead or damaged. Something else, they are called oyster mushrooms because they actually look kind of like a half-shell oyster individually.
Okay.
They usually grow in clumps like this, and if you flip them over, you will see that the gills go down the stem, kind of like a chanterelle mushroom. That's a good indicator that that is what they are. Also, their smell, I use the smell a lot. When they're really young and fresh, they smell kind of peppery. These don't smell super peppery. I think it's because they've been in the sun, but that's one good indicator. And then these little beetle bugs. They're always all over oysters. That's my like cincher that I know, like, okay, this is an oyster because it's got the pests that oysters have. Yeah. Well, we've got some burdock here, and there are actually a lot of useful parts of this plant. The leaves are going to be huge, first of all. They're going to be quite a bit bigger than your hand. And I have huge hands too, so. Then they've got a pretty prominent midrib here. You can see it underneath, especially the back side of the leaf is kind of a silvery color. The front is kind of an army and dark green kind of combination. The leaves are a little bit ruffled on the outside, and if you feel them, they have that same fuzzy feeling that the wild ginger has, and then the stems are going to have a definite, like, noticeable wool down them.
Okay.
And you can see me just kind of like rubbing it off with my finger here. Got wool to them. So the edible parts are the leaves when they're very, very young. I've never eaten the leaves, but I don't think they're super tasty. I think it's more of a survival food if you kind of have to have something to eat. The part that we are going to talk about using today, though, is the stem. The stem can be used as a green vegetable, and it's actually pretty tasty.
Awesome.
You might know that people eat cardoons and stuff like that. This is kind of similar to that idea. They're used in that type of recipe. So we're just gonna cut them down there. Think like chard or kale use, only you're gonna use the opposite part for this. So you know how you take your chard or your kale and you will take off that mid stem? Well, that's the part you want on this. So I usually do a little bit of field dressing with my wild edibles, so when I get them to the kitchen, I don't have a ton of stuff to take out to the compost.
Right, good idea.
So, edibles. I feel like the Greeks and Italians use a lot of wild greens and stuff, and they make good food.
So we had a successful day of foraging. We went out and picked some plants, which is much easier than hunting and fishing because it's there and you pick it. So I like that. We managed to get wood sorrel, burdock, the oyster mushrooms, and stinging nettles. So we've got a variety of things that I am now going to take to the kitchen and figure out what to do with. So I want to thank you very much for taking me out today. I learned some things, and hopefully I can just keep applying them and keep trying new things in the kitchen.
Nice, well, thank you.
I had a great time foraging with Summer earlier, and I have a great recipe for you. It is stinging nettle pesto with oyster mushrooms and burdock. For this recipe, you need stinging nettle, arugula, Parmesan cheese, garlic, olive oil, pistachios, and basil for the pesto. For the oyster mushrooms, all you need is some butter to saute them in. For the burdock, you'll need garlic, Parmesan cheese, butter, and crushed red pepper. You'll also need some pine nuts that have been toasted in the oven at 350 degrees for 8 minutes. The first thing that you're going to do is blanch the stinging nettle. Be sure to use tongs when putting it in the pan. So you're going to boil the stinging nettle for 1 to 2 minutes, and then you're going to transfer it to an ice bath to cool it down. After that, you're going to put it in a strainer, and then use some paper towels to get all of the water out of the stinging nettle. Our stinging nettles are ready to go, so now all we have to do is throw everything into the food processor. So, there's all of our nettles. I'm going to put in about 1.5 cups of arugula. Just kind of depends on how many nettles you have. Fresh basil. I left my pine nuts up here. Pine nuts that were roasted in the oven. About 1/2 cup or so. We're going to use pistachios. Give it a little bit different flavor. Garlic. And the olive oil. We're going to go ahead and blend this before we add in the Parmesan cheese. Now that that's blended, I'm going to add in the Parmesan cheese. This is a lot of Parmesan cheese, but I like mine extra cheesy. Mix that, and then you're going to kind of check and see if you want to add salt and pepper. That's up to your taste. Our pesto's finished, so I'm going to set it aside while we boil our pasta and cook up the rest of our edibles. So here are our burdock stems, and it's really simple to prepare them. We had already cut the leaves off in the field, so all I'm going to do is kind of peel off this fuzzy part and cut it up. So you can either do it this way, or you can just kind of run your fingers along the stems as well. Kind of gets that off of there. And then I am cutting them at a bit of an angle and somewhat uniform pieces so they cook at the same rate. Now that our burdock stems are prepared, we are going to throw them in boiling water for 2 minutes. While those are boiling, we are going to saute our oyster mushrooms. Here is our finished stinging nettle pasta, and I am really excited about it. We kind of just did it up family style because it's a lot of food, and I'm really hungry, so I kind of just want to use the spoon, but I'm not going to. I'm going to serve myself up a little bit here. I've been, of course, taste testing along the way, but get a little bit of everything. All right, so we got the stinging nettle pesto, we've got the burdock, and we've got the oyster mushroom. So I'm going to try to get this all in one bite. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. I didn't know what to expect, but this is pretty awesome. And I really want to sit down and eat this whole thing right now. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to eat half of it or something. Anyway, so if you want some more of our recipes, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like more information on fish and wildlife programs, you can follow us on Facebook. I can't wait to see you next time on CookIN Gone Wild.
What? Is there another car?
Mm-hmm. I could hear the trailer.
Bouncing
Is the
around.
hitch not on? What is that noise? Something isn't right.
Let's not drive behind that on the way back.
Okay. Anyway.